Well, it's a gray day here in November, as is often the case in the Appalachian Mountains and lower Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. Gray is very common this time of year in the late fall and early winter, and we don't have shadow issues when we're making videos, so that makes it pretty easy to get the results we want. And here what I've got today on a gray day is some gray birch. I'm here in Pike County, Pennsylvania at the Delaware State Forest. This is along the Kleinman's Trail, which is a cross-country ski trail in the winter and just a wider old dirt road you can hike down in the summer. And our gray birch is a short-lived tree. It comes in after areas have been logged, which I think this was, or it'll come in old pastures and along roadsides and along road cuts along the interstate, and even after areas have burned. Our gray birch, this one here was only 3 or 4 inches around, and it passed away and falls to the ground, and that bark sticks around for many, many years actually, and the interior wood will rot away before the bark. Let's take a better look at this gray birch, the ones that are still hanging around and are still alive, and we'll compare it to a paper birch growing on the same trail. And gray birch may not be an exact description of the bark color. It's more of a white color. Even on a gray day to here, it is a brighter color. And some of the garden varieties, the landscape varieties, are a much brighter white. Those are hybrids from other trees and have been bred for that. But in nature, it does have a gray hue, but it's definitely a white tree compared to the surrounding trees. And so is the paper birch. Gray birch bark normally does not peel at all, or very little if it does. But it looks like an animal has walked up the side of this tree and left footprints shaped like a V. This tree has extremely pronounced branch scars that are shaped like a V. So does the tulip poplar. I have a short video on tulip poplar immature bark that shows this same pattern. So some trees are what we call self-pruning. The smaller branches do fall off as the tree gets taller and leave these V-shaped scars behind. So these are very pronounced on this white bark, and the bark does not peel. So that's an obvious way we can tell it from paper birch. Let's go up the trail here just a few feet and we'll look at a paper birch. And here is our paper birch growing just a few hundred feet up the trail. Sometimes Mother Nature makes it easy for me to do these videos, because two trees that look the same or similar, if they're right near each other, we can do a direct comparison. So this paper birch is about the same size as that gray birch, 3 or 4 inches around, with obvious exfoliations, they call this, I believe, where the bark peels away and doesn't really fall to the ground. It just kind of peels away. And boy, look at that, huh? Look how clean that bark is where it peeled away, and there's no mold or mildew on it. So very crisp looking bark underneath there. But this does have branch scars, but not as many as the gray birch. That's how we can really tell it apart. You can see there's one V-shaped branch scar there. There's a smaller one here that's more circular, but on average, the branch scars on this paper birch are not as pronounced as that of the gray birch. They both grow in what we call a pioneer species. They grow in areas that have been cleared or logged or burned. So they often grow near or next to each other. I got another one right across the trail here. Let's take a look at that one. And here we are right across the trail here. We have a gray birch that has broken down and fallen over. It's passed away. It's dead. Still has some of those V-shaped branch scars on it. And some mushrooms. And here's our paper birch with the peeling bark. And yes, it does have branch scars, but that one looks more like an eyeball. And so do some of these other ones here. And it does have a V-shaped branch scar occasionally, but it's not constant. So that's how we can tell them apart by bark. Let's go take a look at the leaves, because they are quite different. And let's look at the foliage of the leaves of these paper birch and gray birch trees. I wasn't in a good position to get to where they grow this summer. I had vacation plans that didn't go far enough north. But I'm in northern Pennsylvania right now, and this is about as far south as most of these species are common. They can be found in isolated locations further south. So this is a good time to learn the leaves. I had to poke around through the leaf litter to find them, but they were able to be found. And again, the bark is the main giveaway on these trees. You're welcome to use the leaves as identification as well. Paper birch is on the right. Those leaves are at least as large as my pocket knife, 3 inches long. They do have a point at the end, so they resemble a triangle, but it's not a real pointed triangle. Meanwhile, this is the gray birch on the left. That's a quarter there for scale. They're no more than 2.5 inches long. They're quite a bit smaller. They have that real jagged appearance with that obvious point at the end. So it's a much more pointy leaf than that of the paper birch. They both have that doubly toothed edge like a lot of the birches and hornbeams. So you got a big tooth with some little teeth in between it. The guidebook says that the paper birch does not always have that. You can see for yourself here, they do seem to have it on these ones. So I'll leave that as it is. So here's our gray birch with its winter appearance and a comparison to the paper birch.